So, in case you didn't know, or maybe you just forgot, there's currently a campaign going on that can allow you to get 13-star units for free. These 13-star units are the Rivalate Arms, Rivalate Legs, and the Rivalate Back piece. All you need to do to get these units is complete the quest Death, Destroyer of Worlds, 3 times for the arms, 6 times for the legs, and 9 times for the back. Each time that you meet one of these requirements, you can go up to your Visiphone, there should be a notification over the top of it, and then you just go down to receive campaign items. If you don't know what this quest is, you just go to the quest counter, go to main quests, limited time quests, and Death Destroyer of Worlds is right here. You can complete this quest on any difficulty that you want and it will count for the campaign. I personally like to do it on hard in order to finish it as fast as possible. Now this is the wiki site for PSO2, this is actually the JP version, which is why the names won't match up exactly. But we can take a look at the units that you'll be getting right here. This is the Liberate back piece. The Liberate is the same as the Rivalate, just to clear up that confusion. And if we look at its stats, you'll see that it has 60 HP, 15 PP, 75 attack, and 85 defense. Now I personally don't actually like the Rivalate units. I'd much rather prefer the Lightstream units down here, because I feel like the Lightstream units are just really well balanced compared to all the other 13-star units. But I also just don't feel like the Rivalate units are really that great in general anyway, because if we were to actually compare this piece to the Lightstream piece, you'll see that we have lower HP, lower PP, and lower defense. And the only thing that we have more of is attack, and all we're getting is 10 more attack. Now the reason I'm actually talking about this is really just to give you my opinion on whether or not I think you should invest in Rivalate units. However, if you don't have 13-star units yet, you should definitely get the Rivalate units since they are free. Now, the rest of this video, I'm actually going to go through an affixing recipe that I came up with that you can use on your new Rivalate units. This recipe actually works for non-Rivalate units as well, so if you also don't like Rivalate units, keep that in mind. And while we're here, I'm actually going to point something out. You'll notice that its special ability factor is power 6. And if we actually look above this, the novel's ability factor is power 5. Now, I'm going to be paying more attention to the novel unit. Now, this novel unit you can actually get from the weapons badge shop using Rising Weapon Badge 5s. And what's really important about this is since power 5 is a special ability factor, that means that if you use a novel unit as a piece of fodder when you're affixing, and you have it enhanced to level 10 with the same amount of augments as your base unit, then when you go to affix your base unit, power 5 will show up as 100%. Using this SAF will free up a lot of space in our recipe and will make the overall recipe much easier to accomplish. Now this is just the back piece. The back piece will give you power 5, but if we go over and look at the arms piece, you'll see that this one will give you shoot 5, which is the ranged attack variant, and the leg piece will give you technique 5, which is the technique variant. Now I also mentioned that the Rivalate unit itself has an SEF of power 6. So one thing you would want to keep in mind is that, for instance, if you are making a set of units specific for melee power, then for your Rivalate back piece, you would probably want to use the special ability factor of the Rivalate unit itself in order to get 5 more attack. However, that is just 5 more attack, so it's not really that big of a deal if you just keep using the novel piece. With that in mind, if you don't know how to get the novel units, you go over here, you talk to this lady, go to Exchange Rising Weapon Badges, go to the Weapon Badge 5 shop, then we just scroll down to the end of the novel weapons and you'll find the units. We have the back piece here for the melee power, the arms piece here for the ranged power, and the legs piece here for the technique power. So in order to work on this recipe, you're going to want to have one of these for each unit you're affixing. Then you just have to enhance it to level 10 and upslot it to 6 augments, assuming that you're working on a recipe with 6 augments like I'm about to show you. So now let's actually get on with the recipe itself. You see right here, I'm in Affix Assistant. I'm using a variant of it with global translations on, and I'm going to create a new recipe. The first thing we want to choose is an S augment that's going to be junk. This is actually a really important step that I tend to forget when actually going to affix the unit, is that you want to make sure that you have this S augment on your unit before you go to do the final affix. Otherwise, you might not have any way of getting the S augment on your unit. What I usually do is get an add S augment for the slot that goes on that unit. As you can see here, I can actually search for fortified melee, and that would cost me about half a mil, but you can always search for other ones as well, such as maybe fortified technique, That's about 1 mil. And basically what you would do is before you actually go to do the final affix it with some junk, and just make sure that you use this item in order to get the S augment onto it. So going back to this, the first thing we want to choose is which add augment item are we going to use. You got a bunch of choices for this. This could be a grand item, it could be a grace item, it could be an elegant item, and I believe there's a bunch more as well. And I'm actually not planning on making this actual unit, so I don't really know what I want on this. For the sake of the video, I'm just going to go out and try to make this into a melee power unit. So since this is going to be a melee power unit, we're going to use Grand Might. The next thing we want to choose is which novel unit SAF are we going to use. Since this is going to be power, we'll be using the back piece, so that'll be Might 5. So that's 3 augments out of the way. Most people affix their units with 6 slots. You can also affix it at 5 slots if it's too expensive for you to affix it at 6 slots, but generally most people go for 6 slots. So what are our last 3 abilities going to be? Well, these are actually going to be a Reverie, a Soul, and a Glare. So the first thing that I'm actually going to choose is going to be a Soul. If we type in Soul, you'll see that we have a bunch to choose from. However, a lot of these are kind of outdated and just really weak in general. So what I like to go for are the newer souls, which are the EX souls. You could technically go for Astral Soul as well, but Astral Soul requires a lot of work to actually craft, and I wouldn't recommend going through the hassle. So looking at the EX souls though, I'm actually going to go for the EX Alice Soul. This will give me 20 power, 20 defense, 50 HP, and 2 PP. Now you could actually go for one of these souls instead. You'll see that the EX Alice Soul has more focus on melee power, Tear Soul has more focus on range power, and the Magi Soul has more focus on tech power. I personally really like EX Alice Soul because it's really well balanced, but I also feel like the overall stats that you're getting is way better than what you would get from these. So after the Soul, I am going to choose a Reverie. Now the Reverie is something that you're probably going to want to choose for yourself, and the Reverie can actually be what causes this to cost a lot of money. Now if we actually look at these, we can see Elder Soul is actually really good for melee power. That's actually what I'm going to use. Luther Soul is really good for tech power, and Apprentice Soul is really good for ranged power. You could also go prefer Persona Reverie if you wanted to have balanced attack stats, and Gemini Reverie if you don't care about attack stats and you just want some HP and PP. Mana Reverie down here is just like Astral Soul, you'd have to craft it, and we're not going to do that for this recipe. So after picking my Reverie, I just need to pick a Glare. We have access to a few Glares right now. The Verona Glare is also available right now, it's just grayed out for some reason. But the main Glares that I would recommend looking into are the Exequial Glare, the Mitra Glare, and the Verona Glare. That's not to say that these Glares aren't good, I just feel like these 3 are better than those. So the Exequial Glare gives us 20 all attack and 50 all defense. Now the Mitra Glare and Verona Glare are very similar. The Mitra Glare will give you 30 melee power, 30 range power, 20 all defense, 20 HP, and 2 PP. Verona Glare is exactly the same, except that instead of 30 melee power and 30 range, you get 30 melee power and 30 tech. Now I personally really like Exequial Glare, and this is only going to give me 10 less attack than the Mitra Glare or Verona Glare, so I don't feel too bad about picking it. So after you've picked all of your augments, we're going to press affix. Don't affix by op sliding. And Might 5 is going to be our special ability factor. Whatever soul you picked, you're going to need 2 of them. Whatever Reverie you picked, you're going to need 3 of them. And whichever Glare you picked, you're also going to need 2 of those. Press confirm, and now we just have to organize this a bit. Now since this is our main fodder, this means that this is going to be our actual Rivalate unit. So I'm going to move Might 5 off of it to fodder 1. So now fodder 1 is going to be our novel unit. Next, we actually want to move our S augment back over to our main fodder. And like I said before, you're going to have to make sure that you add this on early on so you don't forget. Now let me just clean this up a bit. So after I've moved everything around, you can see that I've put Elder Reverie on our main fodder, Elder Reverie on our novel unit, the 2 souls are by themselves, 1 of the Glares are by themselves, and I have 1 Elder Reverie with another Glare. If we actually click confirm, we can now see that these are the units that we need to prepare in order to make this affix. You can also see it says 50%, however this is a 10% boost week, and we can use a 40% aid in order to get that to 100%. So moving on, this is the base recipe that you need. However, I'm going to show you how you actually prepare these pieces before I let you go. So first comes the main fodder. We're going to click affix on this, and we want to make sure that we select 3 Elder Reveries. Click confirm, and for our main fodder, you want to have your S7 that you've already affixed to it beforehand, and then you want to have 3 units that have Elder Reverie on them. So in order to make your first piece of fodder, it's going to be your main unit with the S augment already attached, and then you're just going to fix it using 3 units that have Elder Reverie. You should be able to find these from the shop fairly easily. In fact, let me show you that real quick. So here we are in game. I'm actually going to go to categories, units, and we're going to change this to 6 slots, and we're going to search for Reveries, Elder Reverie. Now I said earlier that this is probably going to be the part that costs the most, and as you can see here, most of the Reveries cost over 1 million. I can tell you now that with the recipe that we're working on, I think you're going to end up needing about 9 of these. However, also keep in mind that not all Reveries cost the same. For instance, if we were to go to Gemini Reverie, you can actually see that these are really cheap compared to the other ones. Now remember though, Gemini Reverie is the one that focuses more on your HP and PP, so not a lot of people buy these, which is why they're so cheap. So back to the fixing, I just went over how to make your main piece, and then the next piece would be your novel unit. If we go to fix this, it's going to be exactly the same thing. Use 3 more Elder Reveries, click confirm, just clean this up real quick. Confirm. So as you can see, it's basically the exact same thing for the novel. So moving on from that, the last fodder that you actually have to fix is going to be the one with your glare and your reverie. Now, depending on how much glares cost compared to your soul, it may be better to try and affix the reverie onto the soul instead, but for the sake of the video, we're just going to show it off with the glare. Click affix, and in order to make this, we're going to need 2 of the glare and 3 of the reveries again. Click confirm, and we should be able to move everything onto its own piece of fodder. So in order to make our last piece of fodder, we're going to need 2 units of Execual Glare and 3 units with a Elder Reverie. Now, like I said, the Elder Reveries are currently costing me over 1 million Meseta each, so since we would need 9 of these, this would cost me probably over 10 million Meseta. Now, if you're not able to afford that kind of unit, keep in mind you could always go for a 5-slot unit instead, and if you went for a 5-slot unit, the Reveries on 5-slot units actually cost a lot less than the 6-slot ones. However, you could also just not affix a Reverie if you are using 1 less augment anyway. Now, for the most part, that is the end of the recipe, but I am going to show off the other things that I mentioned. You will need to buy 3 glares as well as 2 souls. If we jump back in game again, you can see that if I search for glares, I can get these for under 1 mil. And if we search for EXALIS Soul, these are going to cost me between 2 million and 3 million Meseta, which is why I have them separate on my recipe so that we don't have to worry about affixing them onto anything. Now, that is the end of the recipe. I am going to put this in the description as a link. However, there is one more thing I'm going to show you because this is actually expensive to make. And that is that if we actually go over here, you can see we can actually transfer this. If I click transfer, we can actually save you some Meseta as long as you have transfer passes. I wouldn't recommend using your transfer passes for this, but if you really want to, you can. And basically what this is going to allow us to do is we can actually affix all of this stuff onto a 5-slot unit instead, and then transfer it onto our main unit using the passes. This could potentially save you quite a bit of Meseta, so just remember this is an option. Now, to extend this even further, you can actually select your Grand Might while doing this process, allowing you to basically just affix all of this onto a 4-slot unit instead, making it even cheaper. So let's click confirm, and I'm not going to go through the process of setting all this up again, but I will show you that this would cost you 25 augment transfer passes in order to get this onto your main unit. So just keep in mind that this is an option if you want to try and affix the same recipe onto a 4-slot unit. You can then transfer it onto your main unit. Anyway though, that's all I have to say about the recipe. I don't actually plan on using any Rivalate units, so I'm not going to go in-game and actually affix this for you, like I've done in other videos, but hopefully I explained the process enough as is for you to figure it out on your own. But if you have any comments or any suggestions about the recipe, make sure to leave a comment down below, and if you like the video and you want to see more, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you next time.